Ow. Suki now. Say what? Errol Spence Jr. could possibly snatch the Tszyu fight from Terence Crawford. Just like that, in broad daylight. Rockabye, baby. Find out more in this brand new video by Ego. Let's dive in.
I said, oh man, they like Ego, why you do him like that? What up, Fight World? Errol Spence, hey, stop that cat. Man down. He could get the Tszyu fight before Terence Crawford. Now, I know what some of you guys are thinking. But wait, Ego. Terence Crawford is the super champion with the WBO. And I'm glad you brought that up. TBV, The Boxing Voice, they came out and released some information that is guaranteed. You see right there on screen, it says, and I will read it for you. Glenn Jennings, the manager of Tszyu, tells us, The Boxing Voice, TBV, they would consider vacating the WBO belt to make an Errol Spence fight, but he prefers to table that conversation until Monday. He did say they are willing to fight Crawford next, but being able to go in with a Spence fight is just from a manager's standpoint. Wow. Boxing, it truly is expect the unexpected, the theater of the unknown. So, if you weren't already watching this weekend's card, which you guys should be, you're boxing fans. In fact, let me introduce myself. My name is Ego, aka Boxing Ego. I've been covering boxing for at least 10 years. The best in the business, and it's not even close. If you're a boxing fan, this channel's for you. This is your one-stop shop for all your boxing needs, interviews, live streams. We have some fun here, daily content. So hit the subscribe button, share the video. Things are now starting to get shooken up a bit. With Tszyu's manager saying that, it changes the dynamic of things. It was definitely thought, there was reports that said that Tszyu and Terence Crawford's side were thought to be in negotiations, but keep this in mind. We know from Terence Crawford specifically, it's definitely a thing to have multiple concurrent negotiations happening all at one time. The reason we know this with Crawford specifically is because that's exactly what he did. He said he was trying to get the Errol Spence fight behind the scenes. He was working with BLT Prime or whatever and getting a David Avocado fight. And then when he didn't get what he wanted out of the Errol Spence negotiations, he pivoted to the BLT Prime selection and fought David Avanesian. So this is nothing new. We see many times where congruently and simultaneously you have multiple conversations being had. You hear like promoters say, hey, we had 3 guys in mind, and you know, this fighter picked this person, or this is the one that we're going with. But even if Tszyu and Terence Crawford are in negotiations, as the rumors suggest, very interesting with this latest comment from Tszyu. Now, I know some people, they're immediately like the Bud Buddies. They're going to get on my page and say, oh, Tszyu is ducking Terence Crawford. Let me explain something to you, good people. The term ducking is now officially being overused. A lot of terms, but we'll stick to ducking for the sake of this video. A lot of these terms that people use. Why would Tszyu duck a great fighter in Crawford, but a guy who's not even in his division? Like a guy who's a division lighter than him. He has power. He comes from the lineage of fighters. And I mean, just look at his temperament. He was supposed to fight Keith one time. You better not duck me, Thun. You better not. I'm coming. He was scheduled to fight Keith Thurman, which stylistically, Keith could give him issues with his movement, his power, and his speed. He's faster than Tszyu. Tszyu, no problems switches gears when it is found out that Keith Thurman has a bicep injury and he won't be able to fight, Tszyu says, bring on the next person. He could have easily said, let Pitbull and Rolly become the main event. Give me an opponent. I need time to train for a set opponent. But he's switching gears, and now he's fighting someone literally 9 inches taller than himself, even though he's coming off a loss by stoppage. That's a difficult style because Sebastian Fundora, his new late replacement opponent, where he's only had 14 days to switch gears and train for said style. You know what I mean? Like, the guy is still 9 inches taller than him, and he's an inside fighter. So you weren't training for that. You're bringing in tall sparring partners now, but initially that wasn't always the case. So I don't think anything about Tszyu shows that he's a ducker. He's already talked about wanting to fight Terence Crawford and guys like Canelo. So I definitely don't think, I think he's an old school fighter. I don't think he's ducking Terence Crawford. However, even with the loss, it could be argued that Errol Spence is a bigger name, because Errol Spence, even though he lost badly to Terence Crawford, you would have to wonder how he's even going to look. So Errol Spence did a lot of great work. One fight is not going to define him as long as he continues to fight on, right? So at the end of the day, Errol Spence, there would be a lot of intrigue with the Errol Spence and Tszyu fight. Now, me personally, I think that Errol Spence, he's had a great career so far to this point. He probably should do a tune-up, to be honest, because Tszyu, if he gets past Fundora, he's the real deal, right? Late replacement, and he's been showing you that, beating guys like Brian Mendoza, who's not a walk in the park. He's not a tune-up fight. He's a very good fighter himself. So personally, I think Errol Spence should probably take a tune-up given the condition of the Crawford fight and how it played out. But that, I'm not Errol's boss. I'm not his manager. Listen, there's a lot of speculation on, is Errol still working with Derek James? Is that still a thing? The reason I'm not making videos about it is because it hasn't come from Derek James or Errol Spence, right? So I'm not here on my channel. When you come to my channel, expect dominance, accuracy. I'm a sharpshooter. I'm a sniper. I could easily clickbait y'all to death and make a bunch of videos speculating, but I'd rather just wait. At some point, Errol Spence, Derek James will have to comment on this and reveal if they're working together or not. So I'll wait to that moment, as opposed to risk my credibility making a million like speculative videos about another man's decision, because that's all it is at the end of the day. If Errol continues to work with Derek James, or if he finds another trainer, that's their business, you know, and it's his personal decision. But the reason why this, in thinking about this Tszyu situation, the reason why this could very well be true is because there's still a lot of star power in Errol Spence despite the loss to Crawford. Plus, Errol Spence has been down with Al Heyman. He's been down with the PBC. He's been holding it down, like going to champs' backyards like Kell Brooks. So basically, realistically, I want my chocolate right hand brownie. Realistically, basically, right? He's done these things. He didn't complain. He just got active and got busy and stuff like that. And he's been working with Al Heyman. He's the guy that's been with PBC. So I don't know Terence Crawford's situation. When you want to be a free agent, that's cool. You can move freely. But when you fail to commit to a winning entity like PBC or any other company or whatnot, then they don't have any obligation. If you don't make that in stone, they don't really have any obligation to feed you. He was supposed to fight, Terence Crawford is supposed to fight Errol Spence in a rematch. To our understanding, the rematch clause has expired. So yes, Crawford is trying to go the WBO route, and he might get the Tszyu fight because of that. But it's not out of the question if Tszyu's team is saying we're willing to potentially, depends on what the numbers are and whatnot. If we get past Fundora, we might be willing to drop the WBO belt to fight Errol Spence if we can make it make sense. So that has to be considered a possibility. And again, PBC, if Crawford doesn't commit to them, Like even Canelo, who's a bigger star than Crawford, he's committed to, or he did a 3-fight deal, and now he's on a 1-fight deal, but he at least did a pact to do business, and now he's on his 2nd fight with PBC. So if the rematch clause for the Errol fight expired for Crawford, and then he's just like in no man's land, then he kind of needs to work with PBC, in my opinion, because what are you going to get? You sign to Eddie Hearn, then what? He got one guy for you, Conor Benn, who just lost the UCAD licensing situation. Their appeal was approved, right? So he might get resuspended. Who knows? And then you sign the Golden Boy, then what? Virgil Ortiz, maybe, who's fighting Thomas Delorme, a guy that Jaron Ennis already knocked out in 1 round at welterweight. So as far as I'm concerned, very interesting things. And this could thwart Crawford's potential plan to try to go through the WBO instead of going through PBC, right? So PBC, very smart, and I don't know what conversations have been had behind closed doors, but that's a smart move. Get in the way of that WBO, because everyone says the WBO is the top rank belt. Crawford came from Top Rank, and he wants to go through the WBO. That's why he's like buddy with Paco and going over to Puerto Rico for the Jake Paul fight and getting awards and stuff like that. So he going through the WBO, but none of that really matters if Tszyu drops the belt. If he drops the belt, then it's over, because it don't matter what the WBO talking about if Tszyu is not in possession of that WBO belt. So with this specific conversation from Glenn Jennings stating that Tszyu would consider possibly vacating, I think that shakes things up, because it no longer puts Crawford in the position to get whatever he wants. And the Spence fight is still lucrative. I mean, even though Spence lost to Crawford, the man Tszyu was about to fight Keith Thurman. We know Errol Spence has complained about having to make welterweight, and it's been a chore to make 147. So we know he truly wants to move up. And again, he's the guy within PBC that has the seniority. So Al Heyman might look after him. Tszyu's also working with PBC. So you keep in mind, you dig, you understand me, you undersmell me. Crawford not having an established relationship with PBC and trying to go through the WBO route, he might be the black sheep. He might be the odd man out, because again, if Tszyu were to vacate the belt, then there's nothing you can really do about that to enforce that you get to fight. The only reason that Tszyu would have to fight him is if the mandatory, because Crawford was the super champion at welterweight, and then if he pops up to 154, he gets that. But again, all that would be for nothing if Tszyu lands a deal with Errol Spence and vacates the belt. Like, it's just like, let's say Ryan Garcia and Rolly. Rolly had to fight O'Hare Davis. But if they truly wanted to make Ryan Garcia versus Rolly, which was a way bigger fight than O'Hare Davis, or O'Hara Davis or whatever his name is, right? Then they could have made that fight and then just ditched the belt, and then it would have been Ryan versus Rolly for no belt. Still a big fight. So I like it. I love it. I think belts, as we go on with time, the sanctioning bodies don't have as much juice as they think they have. And I'll be glad. Belts don't matter. To be honest, these belts don't matter. When I watch a Tank fight, I don't care if he's fight. I watch Tank. I want to see the skill, the craftsmanship. I want to see the flips, backflips over the ring and knockouts and stuff. I don't really care if there's a secondary belt or a belt. That's a fallacy. You guys, I've been telling you this for a minute. It's just like, I got into YouTube because I'm the best, and I pioneered this because I knew magazines are going away. People don't want to just order a magazine and wait 2-3 weeks for it to come in the mail and then do that. I mean, maybe some people, they want to collect the paper, but then you run the risk of your news or your magazine getting thrown away by a family member or wrinkled or crumbled. Everything is digital. That's why I created Digital Mob, and we still here and we still thriving, right? So at the end of the day, certain things are passe and they're going away. Belts are one of them. Belts, I mean, they're cool. I don't got nothing against nobody. But at the end of the day, Ryan Garcia and Tank beat Canelo in terms of last year's pay-per-view sales. There was not one single belt. 0 belts were at stake, and the fight did over $1 million. So Tszyu, should he win versus Fundora, he'll have the WBC belt. Errol can fight for just the WBC belt, and he can vacate the WBO belt. Tszyu comes from a lineage of fighters. His dad, Costa Tszyu, he don't need a belt. Everyone knows the Tszyu last name really off his father. And then now from the work that Tim is doing, and especially if he beats Fundora. So I love this move. I love this move. Shake things up. And at the very least, it forces Crawford to come to the table with something real. He thinks he don't have to team up and, you know, align his brand with PBC. Well, maybe you do after all. We'll leave it at that.